Good evening, I'm the Game Tutor, and tonight I'm going to be looking at Iro Hero, an indie shmup from Spanish-based developer Artax Games. Now, as we get started, let me say that Iro Hero is in a bit of an unusual case. I like a lot about this game. There are a few odd design choices that make the game not quite as good as I feel it could be. The game's easily progressing up the screen, destroying enemies, avoiding lots of bullets, and trying to beat sections of the game that are puzzle-like in nature, like a normal shmup. The game's main mechanic is colour changing, much in the vein of also recently released on the Switch cult classic Ikaruga. By changing the colour of your ship, you can make yourself vulnerable to certain bullet colours and able to hit certain ship colours. As you progress through the game, other colours do appear, requiring more complex puzzle solving. Here is the crux of the main issue that I had, and that may or may not be an issue with you. The game is hard. I mean really hard. Now, I was determined to try and beat it before I finished this review, and in fact this review is a little later than I expected because of this, and in the end I gave up, having reached about stage 5. Now the issue is that unlike most shmups, Iro Hero does not feature any continues, meaning to complete the game you must do a fabled 1cc, 1 credit clear, something which I've only ever done on one other shmup, genre classic Death Smiles. Now, you can use points to buy lives at the end of each stage, which does give you a little more leeway when completing those stages, but equally due to the difficulty and memorisation heavy nature of the game, it's really soul crushing to die on stage 4 and have to play through the whole game again just to practice that one tiny section. Now, the developers have added a practice mode, but the issue again is that you can only practice completed levels, and not the one you're actually stuck on that actually requires practice, which kind of seems a bit of a moot point. Now, I spoke to Jesus, who is an absolutely lovely guy, who's the CEO of Artax Games, and asked him about his design decision not to include continues, and he responded with, "The idea behind Iro Hero is to make a true arcade machine, as Outrun or any of the sort. You throw your coin and see how far you can get, and every time you die you learn something to get further next time. We have been obsessed balancing and polishing every detail in the levels in order to build a really tight experience, but still fair for the player. You'll probably die a lot of times before finishing the game, but if we did things right you should never feel that the game was unfair, and probably will be sure that next time you will be able to do better. So this was the decision, to provide a real challenge for players. However, I am aware that nowadays this can be difficult to accept for many. That's why we included the possibility to buy lives with your points at the end of each level, and the practice mode in order to master a level once you're able to beat it for the first time. And the levels are balanced, so that let's say it's possible to beat the game losing 1 life in each level, and then even 2 sometimes. But yes, in spite of it all, it is a challenge any player should feel proud to have beaten." So that was what he said, and this is where I'm a little bit torn. Now, I oddly agree with everything that Jesus says, but there was a little part of me that in my comfy 2018 world wanted to practice a section that I was struggling on beating. I don't necessarily think that infinite continues a la the cave games is necessarily the way to go, but I do think there must be a happy medium somewhere. I worry that as much as Iro Hero has to give, not many gamers will make it to the end. The scoring system involves destroying a combo of enemies in quick succession. An orb appears on screen, the orb gains points as you continue to kill enemies and increases the combo. When the combo ends, the orb travels down the screen and you've got to pick it up. It's an interesting and actually quite unusual scoring system that's quite a nice mixture of chain combo and the more common picking things up that fall towards the screen elements. Now, the only slightly frustrating design choice there, however, is the lack of a portrait mode. Now, I've got a monitor with a portrait rotation stand purely for shmups, and it's a shame that this game does not include any, as this is something that most shmups have done for years now. Now, for a shmup, the game story is pretty good. Humans have been taught how to produce energy from their own body, and they're being exploited as such by aliens that taught them. Think kind of the Matrix. Iro's mother dies and while being exploited, and you decide to take the stand against the aliens. Now, there are also dialogue sections during the game, but these are told during the game itself, and sadly due to not having any voice acting, you kind of have to ignore them, or if you actually take your time to read them, you're going to end up crashing into a wall. Iro Hero is a fun game that should be one of the best maps on the Switch, but I can't help but feel that the really insane difficulty, due to the lack of continues or any kind of practice mode on the bit you're actually stuck on, will put off most. And that had the arcade no continue mode been a competitive separate mode and the main game had been a little bit more traditional, then I might have been scoring the game pretty much a reasonable amount higher. All I can say is this is a really good game, but for a very specific group of people, and everyone else might be worth approaching it with caution.